What's the difference between a podcast manager and a podcast editor? Let's get into it. Someone asked me recently what made me different as a podcast manager versus an editor. Valid question. But if you're looking to hire one or the other and you're not sure what the difference is, I'm glad you're here because today's episode is all about that. So what does a podcast editor do? Well, I'm sure you've guessed it by now, but a podcast editor edits. And while you can usually find an editor on sites like Upwork or Fiverr, you can also find editors in Facebook groups as well. Podcast editors do a lot of the audio editing, including mixing and mastering, noise reduction, removing plosives, pops, even adding your intro, outro, and ads to any of your episodes. Some podcast editors will even transcribe the entire episode for you, which is great. Hiring an editor on Upwork or Fiverr also means a portion of the sale goes to the site that you're using. That may or may not matter to you, but it's something worth mentioning. Of course, when you hire an editor, you want to know what their turnaround time is. Maybe you want to look at their portfolio or ask them if they have any testimonials, things like that. But once you've hired them, they do the job, give you the final product, and that's it. And maybe that's exactly what you're looking for. But if you're wanting something a little bit more, maybe you only want to record and you want someone else to take over the management process, the editing, the show notes, creating of the promo graphics. That's where a podcast manager comes in. Think of a podcast manager like a project manager for the podcast. They make sure they have everything they need to get the podcast up and running. A good podcast manager will help you set up systems and workflows that work for you, your business, and your podcast. They will take on the audio editing and sometimes the video editing, repurpose your content to create social media graphics like audiograms, reels, static posts. Some will even transcribe your podcast and turn it into a blog or an email newsletter. And some will even offer guest management services where they research and find guests, schedule them for an interview with you, gather all of their assets, and then send it to them after their recording. And all you have to do is show up. A podcast manager is someone you work with on an ongoing monthly basis. Usually they work in a project or retainer setting and less on a per hour rate, but they do become a part of your team that you can turn to, whether it's to strategize your content, put together a growth strategy, ways to monetize, and so much more. When looking for the right fit, the same as when you're looking for an editor, ask for a portfolio to see current and previous work. You also might want to ask about their systems and workflows. What does that look like? See if they can break down your overwhelm into small actionable steps. There are plenty of podcast managers to choose from, but it's important to find one within your price range, for one, who also offers the services you need. Podcast managers and podcast editors are business owners too, and are usually working with multiple clients at the same time. So it's important to respect that as well. You can usually find podcast managers in Facebook groups or even on Instagram. I've added a few resources below so you can check it out, but in the meantime, I'll see you in the next video.